If you look at what's sort of trendy everywhere, it's things that you couldn't be bothered to make at home, right? Because now you can be bothered to make a flat white at home. The things that are interesting to people is stuff that, oh, you do it for me. I don't know how to do that. I don't understand matcha. I'm not going to do the no. You do it. And I want you to do it because I want to go to a cafe and have an experience where I'm well treated, but you do things that I don't want to do.
You probably already follow him on all of the channels. It's James Hoffman. He's amazing.
Thank you for having me. If you could define specialty coffee between the years of 2005 and 2020, I don't think you'd find a lot of fun.
Very serious.
And that's a shame. I am not someone who falls into the woo AI, very deeply probably anti-AI technology for a variety of reasons. I don't see that being a step change of great value or note in our industry.
We've talked about greenwashing, and now, why does coffee make you poop?
The compelling urge to defecate.
All right, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Rowan Cook. I make coffee on the internet.
I'm Ben Bicknell. I judge people who make coffee, but only at competitions.
And together we are
It's Just Coffee.
The podcast for people who know it's never just coffee.
Rowan, when we started working on this podcast, we decided we wanted to create a platform where we could get some of the most inspirational folks on to talk about some of the most important topics in coffee, right?
Yeah, and when you think about modern coffee, there's only a handful of people that have actually shaped how the world understand it. And just over a year ago, I was in London and I got to sit down with one of them, James Hoffman. And I said, Jim James, and he said, call me James. I said, sorry, James, sure, I'll call you James. If our humble little podcast makes it to 100 episodes, will you be on? And he said, I'll just do it now. And I said, no, 100 episodes. And here we are at 101, and we've got James Hoffman.
It's amazing. He is a World Barista Champion. He's the founder of Square Mile Coffee Roasters, one of the iconic foundational specialty roasters in the UK. He's author of a million different things, including the iconic The World Atlas of Coffee. And he's one of the most trusted, maybe one of the most recognizable independent voices in the coffee world today.
Welcome to the show, James Hoffman.
Woo!
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for getting up super early UK time, late in the afternoon here, Melbourne time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apax Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apax Lab Mineral Concentrates. Apax Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. Not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apax Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apaxlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought he was going to say the website. Thanks.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Marco Beverage Systems.
And they are our friends. Anyone that sponsored this show is definitely our friends. You know who else is our friend? The barista, the humble barista, and they get absolutely slammed every day in the cafe.
It's true. They do. They get hammered. And you know what? Like, we've just accepted that standing there steaming jug after jug after jug of milk is just kind of part of the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Marco is trying to remove some of that daily slog from the cafe for baristas.
They are. They have designed the Milk Pal.
The Milk Pal!
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. At the push of a button, you can get hot milk, hot foam, cold foam.
Oh, that's sick. So you can just pour it straight out. Latte art straight from the machine.
Yeah, you choose the exact texture you want and the volume you need, and away you go.
Oh, that's perfect. It also does it, though, with alternative milk and dairy, whatever you're using. And the best part is, as you said, no waste. You're not tipping milk down the drain and just wasting money.
Never a good thing.
And it gives baristas the time to do the things that they actually want to do, not just stuck behind a steam wand.
So if it sounds like a good fit for your business, go check out marcobeveragesystems.com, learn a little bit more about it, maybe find your new Milk Pal.
Milk Pal, it's your Milky Pal. Everybody needs a little Milk Pal. Did they want the
I don't think they wanted that last
the jingle?
bit.
No.
Bonus. Before we get into today's episode, a quick little note from us here at the podcast studio. I'm feeling pretty lucky at the moment because we've had an incredible opportunity at It's Just Coffee just to talk with great guests about some of the most important conversations in coffee at the moment.
And yes, this is one of those little ads where we ask you to subscribe, but don't ignore it like the other podcasts that you listen to. I want you to open your phone right now and I want you to honk that subscribe button because every subscribe helps and we're trying to make the best coffee podcast in the world for you.
Yeah, thanks so much for all of your support. And let's get on to today's episode. Well, look, let's be honest, James. You're a weird coffee guy, right? You are a weird coffee guy. But thankfully, the coffee world is home for the weird and wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Do you kind of know, can you remember back in the day when you started what initially drew you to the coffee world? Like, what was it about coffee and maybe what connected with your personal kind of nature?
Good question. I got a job in coffee like a lot of people because I just needed a job. It paid weekly back then, which is very exciting as someone who had rent. And I didn't drink coffee or like coffee at the start. And I felt compelled to learn something about it. And I read a book on my lunch breaks of this weird job where I was demonstrating little Gadget espresso machines in a department store. And my lunch break, I read the one book about coffee you could buy in 2003, which was like travel writing about coffee by a guy called Stuart Lee Allen, called The Devil's Cup. I didn't quite understand how coffee was so keyed into so many different cultures. I was like, oh, this is, kind of coffee's different everywhere. It's interesting everywhere. It's deep and it's rich and it's global. And it just sort of scratched a bit of my brain where I was like, there's a lot here and you have no idea about any of it right now. So there's like the part of your brain that just likes learning. It's like, there's plenty of food to eat here. And I taught myself to like the taste of coffee. And then I just went down the rabbit hole. And it was, I think, a lot about my timing back then, like 2003, 4, 5. There wasn't much going on in coffee. Do you know what I mean? There weren't many people aspiring to work in coffee back then in the UK anyway. And if you were aspiring and interested and motivated, it just meant you could go a long way pretty quick. So that was kind of it. I selfishly have always just enjoyed learning. That part of my brain, I like it. I tried working in wine when I was younger. I thought wine was going to be it because, parallels. But bad industry. Did not like the industry of wine in the UK. But coffee just felt young and it felt exciting and it started moving really quickly. And that sort of all of it kind of just snowballed, I guess.
Cool. I think a lot of the same stuff drew me in was that kind of mixture of kind of the technical aspects, of the people aspects, like the culture, community stuff, and then just the creative taste side of it. Is like it ticked all of these little boxes that you could pull together.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
It'd be interesting to look at. Like, I feel like all of us started and no one probably liked the taste of coffee the first time they were having it. But I was just drawn in by the fact that you could just get better every single time. And there were these parameters that you had to master and keep going at. It just kind of like sucked me in to doing that. And you briefly mentioned back in, what was it, like 2003, your time selling little Gargias in a department store. What were you saying, or what statements were you making about coffee back then that maybe now would make you cringe a little bit?
Oh, I would just love to have watched me make coffee back then. I just remember one person being like, is it supposed to be this bitter? And I was like, I literally have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing.
A voice of confidence right there.
Yeah. I was like, maybe.
Buy one, find out.
Yeah. Eventually, the pitch evolved over time. And then we ended up with like a little mini cafe in a department store where we would serve you coffee in like a porcelain cup. I would make you like a cappuccino that, it had the basics of latte art on it, which in 2004, well, look at me. Yeah. And then you were stuck because you couldn't walk off because your free coffee was in a real cup. And so while you were stuck drinking your coffee, I could then be like, do you like coffee? Do you want to drink coffee at home in the mornings? The thing that makes me cringe the most looking back, because thankfully there's not too much. Do you know what I mean? Because I was just in consumption mode, but it was sort of unfettered and unhealthy. I remember I had a binder because I printed stuff out, I guess. And it was like a fat, like whoomp binder of all like history and other things like this. And just, I remember I once had it out and a customer saw it and was like, okay, dude. And it's a moment of self-reflection of like, oh, this is this isn't what people do, is it? This isn't right. And I think I was definitely, for the first few years, someone who had a very poor understanding of the difference between wisdom, knowledge, and trivia. And I think I would have been your coffee pub quiz guy, but I don't think I knew that much about coffee. You know what I mean? I'd have had all the facts and the stats and the details, but there was such an enormous gap between that trivia and actual useful knowledge for a long time. So that bit where I thought I knew about coffee and, certainly like early days, I wanted to win coffee like everyone else. You get into it and you see it all the time. People kind of want to win coffee. And I definitely wanted to win coffee. And then you can't because it's stupid. But there's sort of the mixture of excess ambition and total lack of insight into my own lack of knowledge and wisdom. Those two things are kind of a little cringy to look back on. But at the same time, it started me blogging. It started connecting me to a global community. It kind of put me into a virtuous cycle of learning and sharing and learning and sharing. So I'm not mad about it.
I think certainly back in the day, there were many more opportunities where we could step up and share information or share knowledge in a way that people were hungry for it. There weren't maybe as many opportunities just to go and read about it. And I think it actually helps you practice and go, I've got to talk about this thing. I better go and learn what the heck it is that I'm talking about. Now you're talking about, digestive tracts and microtoxins and stuff. But
important stuff.
You got to learn about that. Well, I guess we zoom forward a couple of decades, right? You've been in coffee since 2003 or a little bit before. If you've been in coffee for as long as that, you obviously start to identify, or maybe you start to see patterns and kind of cycles of innovation, optimism, and then obviously sometimes crises. So when you look at the coffee industry right now, this is kind of a big question, but when you look at the coffee industry right now, what do you see as some of the biggest risks that we're facing over the next decade?
I think the obvious one remains genuinely the thing, which is a accessibly priced supply of specialty coffee. Coffee has a bit of a problem in that there's a push-pull here, which is coffee should cost more because producers should earn more, but at some point the thing kind of breaks and people don't see the value by the time it's made its way through the supply chain to the consumer. So you're looking for something that is accessibly priced to consumers, but still viable and worthwhile for coffee producers as a kind of price. And specialty coffee in particular feels slightly more fragile, I suppose, than just coffee as a whole. Because there's going to be coffee for a good long time. People are investing heavily in coffee. More trees are going into the ground. More sort of nurseries are springing up. More seeds are being planted. It's growing in many ways. But with seed market prices high, you have an interesting dynamic that we saw back in 2010. There was a big price spike. It was much shorter. It was a big price spike. And in a bunch of places, quality dropped off quite notably because as a producer, you had a choice, which was I can put in a lot of time, effort, input, labor, extra sorting, extra work to achieve a specialty premium, or I can significantly reduce my inputs and still receive good money. And I ethically would be like, yeah, that's a good choice. Do you know what I mean? Like I love the idea. Do less work, earn more money. Yeah, like that's I aspire to that. And with quality, demand being very high, specialties growing everywhere, but there's less pressure to create specialty because the market is sort of higher. I wonder if then you end up with a much greater separation of price where the specialty coffee that is produced goes to the highest bidder and that price disconnects even more. And it's just hard to access. There are however many thousands of roasteries around the world right now, all wanting to buy specialty. And the land that can grow it will shrink every decade to come. That's the one. That's the one.
Yep.
I don't have the answers for it, but that's the
That'll
one.
do it.
That's the thing we have to sort of think about and question.
Yeah, I think that point about, where does the proposition break? Where does the system break for, the purchase price to the sale price? It's an interesting one because I think in a lot of ways we're still stuck in this moment where coffee is still kind of like the final beverage is still kind of treated like a commodity product, even when we're in specialty. It's like you go and order a cappuccino at all these different places and they're all called a cappuccino. And one cappuccino and another cappuccino, maybe it is different, but it's not necessarily like a completely different product that we're really referring to. And so I think there's that interesting thing where we don't have super differentiation that allows that price to go higher and higher because kind of we're blurring the conversation a bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And when it comes to certain things, I think there's an additional pressure now, which is post-COVID, the depth of quality in the home is much greater. I argue, I really believe it's actually a really great time for cafes right now, but it requires a little bit of a change of thought about what you sell as a cafe. Because in the past, in the UK, I'm derailing myself already here, but in the past, 10 years ago, a flat white was a fancy thing. And you went to the coffee shop for the fancy thing, which was a flat white. And we loved them. We loved going to coffee shops for flat whites. And then the pandemic, and we missed our flat whites. And so we brought them into the house. And in many ways, we demystified the flat white, right? We got the machine, we steamed the milk, and we understood it. And you're like, oh, it's just a flat white. I can do that. And the cafe now is really selling, I guess, mild convenience, which is, yeah, you can do it, but I can just do it for you. And you're like, okay, what's the premium on that? The thing is, if you look at the sort of trends, and I'm bouncing around, I know, but if you look at what's sort of trendy everywhere, it's things that you couldn't be bothered to make at home, right? Because now you can be bothered to make a flat white at home. The things that are interesting to people is stuff that, you do it for me. I don't know how to do that. I don't understand matcha. I'm not going to do no. You do it. And I want you to do it because I want to go to a cafe and have an experience where I'm well treated from the moment I walk in the door to the moment I leave. But you do things that I don't want to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't go to restaurants that cook what we cook at home because we cook that at home. I want you to go, I want the pan sauce that's a reduction of endless hours of stock making. You know what I mean? Like, I want the
when
work
you've fermented
done
something
me.
for years.
Yeah.
Right, just do that. I don't want to do it, you do it. And we have gotten very used to being like, oh no, we do flat whites better. And people are like, well, not much. Like, not that much better than me now. Really, like the auto steaming on most machines is real good. Like it's not that much better. Yeah, it's quicker. They can do lots of nice stuff, but it's not what it was. You know what I mean? If you had a little steam toy espresso machine and a questionable milk setup, yeah, the cafes was levels higher. But now,
Especially with milk-based drinks, right? Like even with your cheaper home espresso machines, you're kind of hiding a little bit of that espresso with the milk anyway. So if you just like a flat white, it's going to take good. And I got to tell you, this is just music to my ears because me and this guy fight every single week about this kind of debate back and forth. And obviously as like the home market advocate over here, I get into a lot of fights with him and with guests that are on the podcast. So this is just beautiful.
Yeah.
I think the root of it though is people want to go to cafes. We really like cafes, but we as an industry haven't really looked at what it is we like about people like about cafes and gone deeper on that. And people want a service experience. People want access to things that are hard to access. People want to feel good about the whole thing. And then we get really zoomed in on like the espresso. And miss the 20 things that impact the taste of the espresso or the experience before that, ends up being sipped. And it kind of drives me nuts where we've for a long time been like, yeah, but our coffee is better. And people are like, that isn't it. It needs to be great because there's a lot of competition. But that's not actually as compelling as it once was. But you have a ton of other compelling stuff. Please use it. Is the issue. Anyway.
I feel like you started answering this by talking about the biggest risk that the industry is facing, and then you've kind of segued into what feels like maybe some of the solution here. I mean, there's all of this stuff that's of stress to the industry with price rise and climate pressures and stuff. But, as you're talking here, you don't strike me as cynical about the coffee world. So is this kind of what makes you most optimistic, is the ideas for what the cafes can be?
I mean, ultimately, we should be optimistic for two reasons, which is coffee is really good. We know that as the industry. And I think people know that too. And people value coffee as a part of their lives, either as a sort of, yeah, sure, the beverage itself, but just the role coffee plays in a myriad of different ways in our lives. That has value to us. And that will support an industry that understands how to meet genuine demand and be good value. Yeah, of course I'm optimistic. How could you not be? We've never had as many human beings in the world slightly care. I don't need them to really deeply care, but they slightly care. And that's enough. We can work with slightly care. And there's millions of them. Probably 100 million, more. I don't know what the numbers are. It's a lot of people care just enough about coffee that they value it. It's not truly commoditized to them. We constantly, coming up through coffee in the last 20 years, all I heard was, oh, it's fine for wine and no. Or, genuinely, I remember seeing the look on a cafe owner's face when they realized that popping the cap on a beer bottle and putting that down in front of a customer earned more gross margin than making a flat white. And you're like, we're very jealous of everything else. But we are in an incredibly fortunate position. We have a huge demand. We are people who really see value in what we do. And we are not a commoditized product. People understand differentiation in a much richer, deeper way than I think we give them credit for.
No, I agree. People are into that, and their experience with coffee is changing and shifting. I've often kind of said, I think like specialty coffee as a super niche has kind of made it. We succeeded, right? Like it's a little bit mainstream. It's been co-opted by commercial and larger scale operations. I think it's a success in what we've been striving to achieve. And I guess like on that same kind of perspective, sometimes these trends that we see, only become visible in hindsight. And some of them, it's just the moment you name them, they become blindingly obvious. Do you see any particular trends that we're in the midst of now or that you kind of see coming on the horizon that we should be paying attention to?
I mean, I think that's it. It's the sort of rise of the specialty drink. Ironically, they lived in barista competitions for forever and were mostly terrible and kind of felt frustrating and slightly pretentious. And like, you'd never put one on a menu. Like, no one's going to buy one. But I think people are probably more open than ever to, okay, show me coffee, but more. You know what I mean? Like, you've spent 20 years now showing me coffee. That's cool. I get it. What else? What else can we do with this? Like, there's just a greater appetite for experimentation and coffee as a piece of a more complex beverage. And that could be complex in flavor, that could be complex in construction. But, that's the sort of piece of it, which will really wind up a bunch of coffee people because we believe in a questionable idea of sort of purity. And it's tricky. But yeah, we want people to understand coffee's flavor, but they kind of do. So, I don't know, give them some credit.
It's a tough one, though. Do you think these signature drinks are helping the specialty market or hurting it? We were chatting about it when we had Morgan Eckroth on the show. She's amazing at making, these kind of signature drinks. But we were kind of noting that most of the signature drinks that are out there, and I'll quote Morgan here, what was it? Schlop, I believe is what it was. Totally. And her take was kind of that every signature drink should use a specific coffee and origin and flavor to make it, not just a drink with cream on the top. So it is a tough debate of whether it's bringing more people into that specialty side or whether it's kind of separating us a bit more.
Yeah.
That's execution, though. Like, that's just,
true.
I think a lot about like coffee flavored products suck. Like generally speaking, like, and, if you find coffee flavored chocolate, your day is ruined. If you know what I mean? Like, most people's expectations of coffee flavor are brutally unpleasant. Yep. And so our advantage is we can do coffee flavor that is delicious and complex and interesting and unusual. Like, the whole specialty proposition is there in an ingredient. And yeah, we did this very effectively with milk drinks, where we were like, you can have one more ingredient and you can still taste the quality and you can still benefit from it. And it is more enjoyable with specialty coffee. Yeah, there's lots of really bad flat whites still in the world, but people tend to prefer ones made with better coffee.
Absolutely. I mean, to that point of, bringing more people in, I think specialty coffee is all about growth and trying to grow that. Yet I feel like we can kind of gatekeep it or hold people out a little bit. You, with all of your content, are very accessible and very in-depth. What can we do as a specialty market to help encourage more people to jump in and give it a go without thinking it's a bit pretentious?
You sort of, I have my answer to this, which works for me. I don't know how scalable it is to everyone else, though. I suppose the question, which is, it would be okay if this was fun. Like, fun is allowed, and that's if you could define specialty coffee in its presentation between the years of 2005 and probably 2020, I don't think you'd find a lot of fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't a lot of fun going on. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of seriousness. There was a lot of worthiness, earnestness. You know what I mean? It was we deeply, powerfully believed in what we were saying, but it didn't always come across as being particularly joyful. And that's a shame because people having fun is quite compelling. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, that seems fun. So yeah, for me, that means I get to be a little bit more of myself / an idiot on the internet, because I'm having fun and I'm absurd, and all of those things are okay. And if you're okay with me being a slightly absurd by nature, you can have some fun with it too. And I think that allowed me to go deeper with people without pushing them away, because they're like, oh, there's something fun about this. Why are you getting so excited about this? Why is this so silly? What's happening here? And so I get, and this is a massive challenge for me, that on the other side of this, a great deal of what we do and what we're trying to do is deeply serious. It is not funny. You know what I mean? Like, the conditions of coffee producers around the world is not particularly funny. That's not tee hee ha ha, come on in, let's have a laugh about this. Like, that's no. So how do you reconcile very serious and ridiculous? Because ridiculous has a place and a utility and a use. And I feel like levity is important and necessary in how we talk to people about coffee, because we need them to enjoy it. And we can't just be lazy and pass all the ethical burden to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have typically said, oh, you have to make the ethical choice. As a consumer, we're going to push all the ethics to you, and you make an ethical choice. Therefore, me as a roaster, well, I have to make the ethical choice because you want the ethical choice. And then I go and buy ethically and do all of those things. And ultimately, we just pass the buck down to the consumer and say, do you want to be a good person or not? And in a market where cost of living is high, global tensions are a kind of mess, like, it's not joyful. Like, it's hard to be like, oh, I need to think about someone other than me. Do you know what I mean? And so we put ourselves in a position where people don't feel as compelled to make the ethical choice because they're just trying to survive or, cope with the state of the world. And I get it. And I think that's a moral failing of the coffee industry, but also really handicaps us because it changes how we're going to engage with people. And we've made it serious and deep and heavy. And people are like, it's 6 a.m. and I haven't had the thing yet. Like, just be nice to me. And I'll have the thing and maybe we'll talk about it later. But right now, just like, be nice to me, please. So what question was I even answering? That's that's something I think about quite a lot, in that there has to be a place for levity in our language, in our images, in our tone, all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's missing. And I think, the brands that did it well early days did really well. I think about early Stumptown had levity as part of its brand and its feel, and it just went boom. People were like, yes, I want this. I really want this. People connected with it in a totally different way. Other brands blew up by being very serious, and that there's no like judgment in this, but I feel like we need a spectrum of stuff, and we're a little light on joy.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's almost what I'm hearing out of that is kind of treat what you do seriously, like treat your work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And then also don't be too serious with your customers, like let's have some enjoyment and like have a little bit of our laugh at ourselves and our massive binder with history printouts. And then, I had a similar thing, James. I think I ended up having some kind of like, I don't know, some very embarrassing notebooks or folders on my computer back in the early days where I'd saved like, where you could like print out like HTML, like website kind of, save them to your thing. I think a lot of those coffeed forums back in the early days, I was like, that's like gems of wisdom. And then saved them. Bad hoarding.
There was a forum pre that, which was the Barista Guild of America, was a thing for a while. And they had a forum, and I used to have like pages of like bulletin board, A4 printed out of like conversations. You're like, this is gold dust.
We should pull those back out because I know you still have them, James.
Oh my God, they're somewhere. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Ecobarista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good.
We put so much effort into our espresso, dosing, distributing, tamping, weighing, but then in so many cases, a cafe will just take whatever milk they happen to have available and throw it in and call it a day.
I know, and milk actually makes up 70% of all coffees ordered. So you could argue that great milk is just as important as great coffee.
Definitely could argue that.
Oh, I couldn't, I did.
Our great sponsors of the podcast, Riverina Fresh, have a milk that is made for coffee specifically, and it's used by some of the best cafes around the country and, in fact, World Barista Champion.
Yeah, this gold range that they actually have here was designed alongside a World Barista Champion to be richer and more indulgent to pair perfectly with coffee.
If you want to check it out, they are doing a sweet deal for Australian-based cafes, and you can get a free trial.
That's exactly right. You can get a free trial straight to your door. Just head to riverinafresh.com.au and see if your cafe is eligible. And why wouldn't you? Serve up the same milk as World Barista Champions.
We're kind of talking about how we work in coffee and the journey that we go through. And I think, again, we all started in coffee quite a while ago. Like Rowan was a barista for a long time. But when we started in coffee, like the career pathway or the opportunities that were there were very different, 15, 20 years ago than they are now. From what you've kind of experienced, James, and what you see out there in the coffee world, what are some of the most exciting or kind of, I guess, impactful coffee roles that you've got your eye on?
So it's hard not to wear the hat of someone involved in a roastery and just think about that only. I mean, I'll ramble a little bit here, so forgive me. Going back to the early days of starting a business, so that was 2008 for us. We looked exclusively for people who really were into coffee. Like that was a kind of requirement. And so being into coffee was a great way to accelerate your career. The downside of that was, and what we didn't understand and what every business failed to understand, is that when you get people excited about coffee in a very touchy coffee kind of way, you're basically saying the end result of your career is either going to be roaster or coffee buyer. And those were the jobs. Like, I'd love to be a coffee roaster. How do you become a coffee buyer? Those were like the positions in coffee that had kind of the most kudos, I guess, for want of a better term. Like, they were the thing that people most aspired to be who'd gotten into coffee. Over the last, whatever it is, 20 years, coffee businesses have grown and got a lot more complex. And I would say, while a coffee buyer is a significant role in a business, if you're looking at earning potential, growth, career longevity, all of those things, there's just about everything else comes onto the table and is really, really interesting. And what I think a lot of us did kind of wrong in some ways, with the best intention in the coffee industry, is that we took these passionate people and we kind of let them fill the roles that were there. And so these passionate coffee people ended up in marketing. These passionate coffee people ended up in logistics or in like operations or whatever else. And I'm not going to pick on marketing people here, but if you look at how coffee businesses marketed, well, they marketed as if they were only talking to passionate coffee people, because the people in those roles had come through being passionate about coffee, and this was a space that had filled up in a growing business, and there they went. I remember the point at Square Mile where we sort of transitioned, where we someone moved on from that role, and we're like, we need someone to come into this role who knows way more about marketing than we do. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's because what we've done is we've taken passionate coffee people, shared as much as we can, and developed them in a role and tried to feed them. But you're like, oh, hang on a second, external skills and experience would be super useful here. And so for me, the penny drop was like, oh, we've done a really bad job at coffee of saying to people, if you love coffee and you really want a great career in coffee, leave and go and do something else in an area that you're passionate about, and develop a ton of specific skills. If it's going to be marketing, it's marketing, right? It's an easy example to make. Go and work your way up through marketing. And then when you've got a bunch of skills, you can come back to coffee and kind of ask for what you want from it. Do you know what I mean? Because everyone's like, we're so desperate for skills because we get it now. All of these businesses have aged and evolved. We just need skills. If you vaguely care about operational excellence, going and working in a big business or anywhere else and learning a bunch about how operations work makes you so valuable to every coffee business out there. You have your pick of operations roles because we don't have that internal expertise yet. And yeah, give us another 20 years, we probably will have better endemic expertise. But as young businesses and a young industry, we're desperate for those skills. And so, yeah, if you get really good at marketing, you can probably earn more money working for a tech business. I'm not going to argue that. And maybe if that's the sole goal for you, fine. But if you really deeply love coffee, having something to bring back into the industry makes you incredibly valuable. So it's a weird thing to recommend, but like coffee isn't deep and broad enough yet because it's so young that you can really build significant expertise in a non-coffee role within it. I think that's really hard to do. If you're exceptional and talented and motivated, probably yes. But for many people, I think that's really, really hard. Other industries will take you further faster. And coming back, gold dust.
Well, I think sitting across the table from me here is a case in point with Mr. Rowan, who left the coffee industry and has...
Yeah, I kind of did it by accident, though. That wasn't my plan. Like, your great thing. I just
kicked you out.
Yeah, I was working as a barista, studying marketing, went and did marketing, and then got brought back to wanting to do it in coffee and something I was passionate about. And having those extra levels of skill set kind of helped me set up, rather than just being like, hey, I'm going to do a coffee roastery. We were like, well, hey, maybe we do like a coffee media business that has a roastery and has a product arm and has all these other kind of arms. So I can recommend that having those skill sets outside of just that coffee industry does really make it valuable when you come back in.
I mean, you got such great experience because you worked in San Francisco for some big advertising agencies, right? And were exposed to a whole different industry's professional kind of way of operating. And I think that's a really fascinating space to come back into the coffee industry, both as a professional, but as a business owner, and to see how others from outside of our little bubble work is really valuable. And so, I mean, for me, I think like some of those coffee roles, like I guess, or the roles in the coffee industry, I totally get what you're saying, James. Maybe they're actually things like finance specialists, folks like that. Like that's an incredible skill set, both for small business or for a trade or anything like that. I feel like there's such a lack of good access to financial managers and chief financial officers who actually know the area. I mean, I don't know. I think if you're excited about that, you're excited about it. But
love coffee. Find something outside of coffee that you also like that will help you in coffee and follow that kind of thing.
Basically that, yeah. And as a sort of final point. For a long time, coffee did a terrible thing, which was like, we can't pay you very well, but you like coffee, so just take a pay cut to work where you're passionate.
Yeah.
And I think the industry is evolving now where, yeah, it doesn't pay like tech. But the upside is you don't have to work in tech. Sorry, I'm just not. Let's get out of that. But like, I think the industry and the businesses are evolving to the point where earnings are not yet at parity with other industries, but it's getting closer. Like that gap is closing. We understand talent acquisition is what it is, and you need to pay more to get better people. And I think that world is changing, and it's less abusive of people's passion to make them affordable, and it's shifting.
Next question is the tech industry. So it's a... No, let's jump back into something coffee-based. We were talking about it before. We were talking about home baristas, and, let's sit here and face it. Home baristas are now making coffee that's just as good as a cafe. So how do you think that this kind of high level of home brewing should impact how, say, cafes and coffee roasteries are doing business?
Again, I argue it's a pretty good opportunity for cafes right now to offer things that people understand a little bit more deeply. Again, if you look at high-end coffees, some is going to go to people's houses. People want to buy a bag of the very expensive thing, but a lot of people don't. And actually having by the cup high-end coffees is very compelling again. It's like, oh, I don't have to buy the bag. And it should be brewed well, and I don't have to worry too much about dialing in. A really great cafe is going to brew me something very fancy and special. I see value in that because I understand brewing enough to know that I don't really want to mess this up. I understand why the coffee is more expensive because I get it. So, that feels positive to me. We just have to get out of the mindset of what is in the cup is the transaction, right? Because yes, if you're just equating this cup of coffee to one brewed at home in a 1-for-1, it's really hard to justify the increase in price. Do you know what I mean? This $7 drink versus the same thing you made at home for $1, right? How do we say it's worth 7 times more? As liquid, it isn't, right? It just isn't, and we need to accept that. It doesn't mean that I can't sell you a $7 experience that is better than your $1 experience at home. Right? Like how I treat you, where you sit, music, ambience, design, materials, everything contributes to the $7 experience. And I feel like, a lot of that is gotten right by a lot of places. Service maybe less so. That still remains a kind of weird missing piece of the puzzle.
Crazy gap, really, when we're in the hospitality industry, right?
I'm very fortunate in that, so I am associated with a cafe called Proof Rock. Square Mile owns and operates Proof Rock. We keep it as a separate identity. And I never really talk about it on the internet, but the internet's not stupid. And so the internet has worked out that I'm associated with this cafe, however tangentially, right? And so people go because they want to drink coffee there because they've seen me make videos on the internet. That is an impossible set of expectations, right? That's just genuinely impossible. If it's just liquid, if I'm just looking at liquid in the cup, there's no way to brew a liquid where they're like, that is it. That is everything I expected. However, the team there, get all the credit, are really good at service and really spend a long time thinking about service. And so by the time people who've come because of the internet have sat down and ordered, they're already having a good time, right? Like it's just stacking the deck in favor of the liquid. So by the time the liquid comes, 10 nice things have happened. And even if the espresso's a little off, or the pour over's just a little off, they're like, oh, it's coffee, it's hard. I'm having a nice time. Everyone's nice to me here. Everyone is empathetic and kind and welcoming and warm. And so, I feel special. I feel well treated. Great. That's it. That's that. Did you have good coffee there? Yes. And whenever people are like, oh, I went to Proof Rock, my question is always going to be, I'm not going to say, how was the coffee? Because that's not the point. I'll be like, did they look after you? Like, I will want to pull that part of your brain and highlight that part of your brain. And if they didn't, I want to know about it. But that's the feeling of like, oh yeah, they were great. They were so nice. And you're like, yeah, good. Because whatever happens, people were really nice to you. And we like that. weirdly, as human beings, social creatures. And it is hard to do. It's hard to scale. It's hard to set a singular answer to the question of like, what is good service and how do you do it? But I think where it is prioritized and talked about endlessly and focused on, and again, sort of, you see the rewards. If you look at the reviews, the positive ones and the negative ones usually come down to service. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one writes a 1-star Google review because of an 18.3% extraction. Do you know what I mean? No one cares like that. They care because the toilet smelled bad, or because someone forgot their order, or because they were left in the street for too long. Whatever it is, like, that's the 1 star. We just don't seem to get this, and we're so fixated on liquid. It drives me insane.
I think there will be some reviews that are about the coffee and it being bad, but I think the core of it is it still coming down to the service. Whenever you see someone complaining about the food, they'll often follow it up with the steak was overcooked and terrible, and the waiter was just so rude. And it's always comes down to that. And we've talked about this a lot on the pod that, I think we were talking just recently saying that if the service isn't your number one priority, then everything else is going to fall down. And I personally believe that coffee tastes better when you're having a good time. And if you're having a bad time, a great coffee might not taste so great in the way that you perceive it. So I think that side of it is really crucial.
It makes a huge amount of difference. And I mean, I guess we kind of starting to come into a question here, James, of, is the cafe model with some of these changes, like, I guess I've got like a little bit of a cookie cutter or a few versions of like a specialty cafe that can happen generally around the world. Do you think that there's some fundamental changes that need to happen to some of those models to kind of meet this changing consumption pattern, the way that what people expect in a cafe?
No, I don't know if the change in model is necessarily it. What I'm not going to argue for is that I'm not trying to say that like we think Proofrock's perfect and every cafe should be like Proofrock and every cafe should have the same service flow, menu offering, experience. 100%, absolutely not. Do you know what I mean? Like, we really, really benefit from diversity of thought, experience, and flavor, right? Like, specialty coffee is very bad at this. We're really bad at this. We really, really love to just always have one eye on what everyone else is doing and allow that to shape what we're doing. And it really homogenizes a very diverse thing, which kills me. Do you know what I mean? Like, coffee, the reason we're excited about it is because it can do lots of different stuff. Fundamentally, that's it. Like, if it just tasted one way, none of us would be doing what we do now, right? If it could only do one thing, but it can't. But at the same time, everyone's watching everyone else's Instagram, everyone's looking at everyone else's packaging and thinking, okay, I've got to factor that into how we do ours. And that drives me nuts. And cafes the same. Early, especially in London, the 2010s was really bad for like what ended up being called the chain with no name, where there was just a look to independence, that there was so much commonality of design that it sort of was like, wait, are you all owned by the same person? And you're like, no, it's just a collective hive mind of kind of an absence of opinion and aesthetic. And it really depressed me. So my argument doesn't have to be everything has to be borderline restaurant, high touch service, those kind of things. That isn't it. If you want to do a kiosk and just bang out milk drinks, yeah, you could do that. But again, you can optimize that around the ideas of value and service and experience and all of those things for what you want to do. And it can just be head down, crank out the drinks, great. But just be thoughtful about that stuff. As much as you're being thoughtful about the burr choice in your grinder, you need to be thoughtful about the rest of the stuff. And that's just where we fall down in terms of just building an entire picture.
Yeah.
So the model, I don't think, is wrong. I think that there's more space to play with the model. And again, doing some proper financial modeling would probably help, which is not often done. I mean, most people who start cafes build a spreadsheet that lies to them, but they're not really digging into regular financial modeling and understanding how to change the model of what they do to make the margins work throughout, to make it a sustainable, profitable business.
Yeah, I guess there's always risk in changing like what's a proven thing out there, and you see examples of it. So I guess maybe there's an understandable hesitancy, when you're trying to start a whole new small business and put your money on the line. I think it's kind of probably what I was getting to with the model is in Australia, we kind of see there was that real drive. Yeah. And it was probably like 2019, or even a little bit earlier, of really large venues, right? Down in Australia, as like a lot of people have probably heard, we have like quite a big food service or food offering with a lot of our cafes. And what you end up having is kind of a restaurant coffee kind of blend that's, would have like 120 seats and full service a la carte menu or larger, right?
Yeah. I was working at Top Paddock with like 100, I think with outside it was like 180 or something like that.
180 seats, massive kind of venues. And now you're in a landscape that the consumption habits have changed. There's like cost of living kind of pressures. People are making more coffee at home, and so they're not turning up to their cafe on the regularity that they used to be. And then therefore all of the spending and all of the overheads of these large venues, that model is kind of under pressure. And so I think, it's interesting. A few of the people that I've been talking with are saying, really refocusing on stronger retail offering, that you also kind of like you were saying, James, you've got a group of people at this business who are passionate coffee people with a lot of knowledge. How can they actually provide that knowledge and experience in a different way, maybe in selling beans or home brewing equipment or whatever that can still bring in customers? So maybe just looking at the ways that those cafe models can adapt to new consumption habits and something unique is maybe a good direction to look into.
Jumping from the cafe to kind of you being behind the camera and making this content. Now, you've been doing it for a long time and you've made a lot of videos. And as someone who also makes videos, you must be one of the most like quoted persons that, oh, well, James Hoffman said this. Oh, but James Hoffman said that. Oh, but this and that. What are some of the ones maybe from the last few years? Is there anything, a video that you'd like to look back on and talk about now and say, look, I've actually changed my mind on that, or there was something I said back then that I don't agree with?
Let me preface this by saying that I do not believe in my correctness or rightness in this one here.
Oh, holy James, we shall obey.
Yeah. Like, oh God. Like the thing that particularly crushes my spirit is when my name is invoked to justify an opinion that isn't mine, which happens with surprising regularity of like, but he said, you need a fancy pouring kettle. I'm like, no, I didn't. I really went to great lengths not to say that.
Yeah.
As I look back on the videos I've made, I think I tend to focus on how could I have made that better rather than, because what I would try to present is not, here is the finished and final correct answer, right? Like often what I would try to present if it's about brewing coffee is, here's a bunch of stuff we learned. This is the best of it summarized into a practical takeaway for you that I think would be viable to ask for. Now, there are weird moments or decisions that I've made that are really tiny that rankle me that I can justify. Would I make them again? It's a good question. Like we're going niche now. We're going real niche. I did a bunch of AeroPress testing back in the day, like so much AeroPress testing back in the day. And generally speaking, the longer you just let an AeroPress steep, the better, right? So I liked a 4-minute steep slightly more than a 2-minute steep. But in the final technique, I said 2 minutes. And most people are like, cool. And a couple of people are like, wow, why are you saying 2 instead of 4? What was the decision matrix here? And you're like, well, there's no use in a technique if halfway through people are like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, right? So I occasionally feel like, is it a compromise? What is it? I will be someone who's thinking about or trying to think about someone watching the video and being like, am I going to do this tomorrow? Because I want you to enjoy coffee more. I want you to enjoy the process of coffee making more. And I learned with the French press technique where I was like, leave it a while, stir it, leave it a while more. People were like, how can I do that? I've got a busy life. And I'm like, then be busy and do something else. But it was a real pushback, which I didn't understand, but it was there. And so there's moments where I've made decisions that I have tried to make because it's sort of better for more people rather than the chase of absolute perfection at all costs. And there's someone like Jonathan Gagné was like, why don't you just steep it for 10 minutes then? And that made the Gagné press technique, which is delicious. If you haven't steeped an AeroPress for 10 minutes, do it. It's totally delicious. Is it worth 10 minutes? That's up to you. I can't say that with confidence. I can say with confidence that 2 minutes is absolutely worth it over 1 or 30 seconds. Can I say doubling that time is as worth it to most people? Ooh, complicated. So I wrestle with that kind of stuff. I wrestle with presentation. I wrestle with edits, shots, those kind of things. Could I have done that better? Could I have said that better? Could we have, built a better narrative there? But because I try not to deal in hard truths, because there aren't any, I sort of feel like I haven't gone back and be like, I should take that down. Like there's videos I've taken down, but that's because I feel bad about them, not because I think they were incorrect. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, and I've definitely gotten better at it over time, but I know for whatever reason, I'll review and edit 100 times. And then for as soon as I click the button, go live, and I watch it once it's live, I'm like, oh God, why did I say that? I should have said it like this. It never comes up in those 100 reviews, but as soon as it's live, all of a sudden the fact that thousands of people are watching it makes me go, oh, there it is.
Yeah, I was very grateful. I had a bit of a talking to from my team who were like, occasionally, could you just enjoy it? Like occasionally, could the first thing you do not be pick it to pieces?
Impossible.
Do you know what I mean? Like we all worked on this. We're all proud of it. Just can you be a little bit proud too? Is that okay? Could you work up to that? And I'm like, okay, I believe in, you know what I mean? Like improvement. I believe in criticism and I believe in evolution. But at the same time, I have worked much harder to be like, we did do okay with that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's okay. I can be proud for like a minute. That's okay.
Always the 5% that didn't go right that you focus 100% of your attention on.
Yeah.
And you're probably sick of talking about gear and equipment or technology, but just looking forward or having such a great insight into the industry that you do, is there any coffee brewing gear or technology that you feel like is just emerging or on the horizon that might be like the next thing that kind of shifts the way the industry goes?
Not yet. I think we're definitely in a phase of like iterative improvement and price coming down. I haven't seen anything coming down the pipe that is the sort of next step change. You know what I mean? When we began to manipulate pressure or have real temperature stability, those were limited step changes, but sort of notable technical approaches. Right now, I see a lot of refinement in that. And I see, if you look at domestic grinders, your money keeps going further and further and further and further and further. And that's great. That's not a bad place to be. But for me, no. Like I am not someone who falls into the woo AI and woo AI will fix everything and all of the, do you know what I mean? I'm very deeply probably anti most AI technology for a variety of reasons, particularly LLMs. But I don't see that being a step change of great value or note in our industry. And so, yeah, at the moment, no, I'm not seeing anything big yet.
Can I ask, what about, you've done a little bit of work with roasting systems that are moving to electric spaces, right? Yep. Notably like Bellwether and you going out into the desert to roast by sunlight. Do you kind of see that as that's something that I feel like the roasting sector has really struggled with, is getting systems and the process and everything up to speed to move to electric?
I mean, it's just a question of scaling that's the pain. Like it's just the energy requirement is part of it. If you a Bellwether is pulling a decent amount of power to roast a relatively small amount of coffee. So by the time you're trying to scale up to say a 75 or a 90 kilo roaster, that's a chunky cable to sort of run in to the back of the machine. You know what I mean? Like that's a
Tap into a data center. Tap into your local data center.
There's plenty of electricity going around. But I mean, for me, that's interesting because the question of what do we do when we stop burning gas is a good question to start thinking about as early as possible, because gas is going to persist for a surprisingly long time. It will remain cheap. It is all of those things. But at some point, we just have to stop burning it. We really do. Like we just have to stop. And the entire coffee industry, 99.999% of coffee requires the burning of gas. So yeah, bellwether was interesting from that perspective. And I'm not looking for anyone to come up with a singular answer. Their answer right now is you decentralize it. You don't have one big roasting machine. You have lots of little roasting machines, matching environments, matching roast profiles, and you can do sort of replicatable roasting in multiple locations, which for some businesses would totally work. It doesn't work for Square Mile. We have some that are interesting. We couldn't just switch off the probats and switch over, but we can do kind of fun stuff with them. But yeah, roasting isn't, there's not going to be, again, bellwether, I hope they succeed. There's not going to be one monolith winner. There's not going to be a roasting monopoly in any way. There's going to be different answers to that question, which is very necessary. But the more people investing in that, the better, I say. There's no downside to us being able to use renewable energy. Do you know what I mean? Like there's not, oh no, now we have to burn less gas. I don't see it as a bad thing.
So we were chatting before about kind of your influence of, whether you like the label or not, but, you are one of the most influential voices in coffee. I was just curious, how seriously do you kind of take that responsibility, and how has it affected you over the years in your choices when making content?
It is something we think about constantly, and shapes a lot of the decisions we make and the way that we make videos now. I had sort of quietly hoped that I was aware that my channel kind of blew up quite quickly, and I became a kind of disproportionately loud voice in coffee in some ways. And I looked at other industries that did product reviews, and you tended to see multiple voices. So while you may have a prominent reviewer, if they don't like something and everyone else does, it's just a data point. It's not a damnation. Whereas if I go out and I'm damning about something, that will be disproportionately received, if that makes sense. I'm not just a data point. It's too loud. So where we are aware we can have a material and significant impact on somebody's business, that will change what we feel we can review and the types of reviews that we can do. And so I'm not saying no one should ever give small companies a bad review, but I'm saying if I take a startup's product and I'm mean about it, then before they get the chance to iterate and grow to something good, I could kill that. And I don't particularly want to do that. So we don't do that. All our testing, well, we do a lot of testing now. And that's the other piece of this, where we sort of feel we need an enormous burden of proof just to make a simple review video because of the potential economic consequences. I'm not worried about being sued, but I do feel that if you're going to say something and it's going to be loud, you should have the receipts. And so we don't publish most of the testing that we do, and most of it's very boring. But somebody works full time just testing stuff and looking at stuff. Like that's their entire job, because we want to do it right. And we'll still make mistakes sometimes, because humans and best intentions, but it is what it is. So, over the years, some videos have disappeared because when I made them, the channel was small, and being mean about someone who'd made like peanut butter with coffee in it didn't feel mean. It was just like, hey, look at this wacky thing. It's not good. Then I'm like, well, if that gets 1 million views now because the channel's grown, that's sort of mean. Like that's not really, no one asked for that. That's not kind or good. I don't feel bad about, I'm going to think of someone to pick on. Like,
IKEA.
IKEA, yeah. I mean, like Fellow is an example. Like I'm very comfortable criticizing aspects of their products. I'll complain about the carafe in the Aiden brewer, and I don't mind doing that. They're a big, substantial business. I'm not punching down to go after them, but other products come across, the desk, and I'm like, oh, it's just, whoa. What if it's bad? We'll do a bit of testing. I'm like, oh, it's not great. Okay, fine. And it's sort of, we let it go. So there's a rack of stuff downstairs at some point we need to give away of things that we bought to test, and it didn't quite make it, and it was too small a business to talk about, even if it's a bit interesting. And I hope someone else makes that video, because I think the information should be out there, but you have to understand when you have a loud voice that what you say has consequence. And I'm not really interested in damaging people's businesses. I do want to push bigger manufacturers to improve, if that's part of the review. That's the balance, I guess.
And it's wild. Like some of the products that I've seen you review, like, was it the X Bloom? And I feel like the next X Bloom that came out, it was like every upgrade was just what you had listed they should do in your video. You were like, you know what annoys me about this thing? I wish it did this, and I wish it did this and this. And then literally the new product comes out and it's like with 3 new features.
I mean, I hope that my review was just common sense and other people felt the same way.
Yeah, I think so. No, but I think that's super admirable. And if you need help doing a giveaway, I can definitely host you on have the things that James Hoffman didn't like enough to even review. They're that bad and you can have it.
Bird.
It's not that they're that bad. It's just it wouldn't be a kind of enough review. And where we found small things, or I remember getting a really nice, we didn't think about it at the time. There was a product called the Barista. It's like a stovetop brewer that there's a jet engineer built this thing, and it genuinely gets to 9 bars on your stovetop, and it makes espresso, and it's good. It's a little, there were some quirks. They got improved, but they wrote me a message not long afterwards being like, we've had to move to a new factory thanks to your video, and just like, thanks.
Oh, whoa.
And you're like, cool. Like that's nice.
That's
I
amazing.
don't have any vested interest in their success. I gained nothing from it. I liked that they made a cool thing, and they took some, feedback as part of that review on. Yeah. Lovely. And if I could make those videos all day, I would. But that's, they're a rarity. But it occasionally there's a nice story where you're like, oh, that's made my day. That's nice.
And just quickly following up from that, do you think that the coffee industry is lacking independent, informed voices? And how important is it for the future of the industry?
I think it's lacking is a complicated question to answer. I think it's incredibly important. And I think people are sophisticated in their understanding of what a review is. And if I watch a camera review and someone's like, they sent me this $25,000 camera to loan for a month or 2, I'm giving it back, and they have no say in this review. I'm still aware as a viewer that like, oh, but they did you a favor. Like they gave you access. There's still a quid pro quo of some sort happening here. And yeah, they didn't get to review what you said in the video, but the disclosure helps, right? Disclosure is the barest of minimums. But I think people watching that are sufficiently cynical and experienced with the internet to be like, okay, that's different to the review of like, I bought this camera, this is 3 months of me living with it, and this is what I think about it. Like the value of those two things is wildly different for a bunch of reasons. And so we aspire to be the latter of like, we paid money like a normal person, like it hurts a normal person to spend $1,500 on a grinder. Like that was, that I did the credit card payment. I saw it go out, like that hurts. It just changes the review. And so I think people respond to what we do because of this. I think people value it deeply. We are open and clear and as transparent in disclosures as we can be, and still strive to remove bias where we can and acknowledge where we can't, I think. And so, yeah, I think the internet as a whole values that, which just makes it an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's hard to do. It's hard to build the kind of support base that I have, and I acknowledge that. I'm very lucky. But it doesn't mean there aren't more opportunities to do that and to build a business or a voice or a brand or whatever it is you want to do through trying to reduce your bias and your need for disclosure ultimately. So yeah, I want more of it, and I think consumers want more of it too. And it has a value that they genuinely appreciate.
It generally feels to me like there's a gap in our industry or in the dialogue that's independent. And maybe, I mean, James, yourself and like Rowan, you do a lot that's speaking to the home coffee professional and baristas. Like James, a lot of your communication is obviously bridges that gap. But I mean, from an industry point of view, it feels like there's still not a huge amount of conversation that's coming from an unbiased or a place that doesn't have too many strings attached. There's a lot of individual businesses. So hopefully some more folks kind of bubble up into that space.
I think more people are moving to the space. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think the traditional kind of influencer model, for want of a better term, I don't like it, is sort of considered the standard approach, which is, again, I'm into different approaches. I think it allows you to go further faster if you're operating in a smaller category. And right now, the category of conventional coffee influencer is pretty full. And I think there's space around it to do other stuff if you want to.
Yeah. Kind of comes back to our discussion about roles within the coffee industry and what's kind of exciting. Maybe there's a gap there for people to develop their communication and education skills.
Totally.
So I kind of want to pivot the conversation a little bit to something that's maybe like a little more serious. But I think there's a little bit of a criticism of the specialty coffee industry. Often a criticism there that it's become very good at sending the right signals about particular values, right? Sustainability, transparency, care. It's kind of woven into a lot of this subculture and our understanding of what is specialty coffee. It's, we take care of farmers because we pay more for high quality coffee. We care about taste and quality and all of these kinds of things without necessarily changing much of the underlying kind of outcomes or certainly the economics of it. Do you think that there's a risk that specialty coffee is intentionally or unintentionally kind of greenwashing itself by maintaining, in particular, producer prices that aren't really radically different from historical prices? Big breath answer that one.
Big breath. I'll start with, I'll put myself in the firing line on this one too, because I'm a participant of this. I'm not on the outside. I'm deeply on the inside here. And so, I spend a bit of time wrestling with what is broadly, mostly really good intentions. Do you know what I mean? I think most people who come to specialty, certainly who were drawn in early, came with the intention of I'm passionate about the beverage. I'm passionate about how we get there. And paying more seems fair and appropriate, allows producers to build sustainable businesses, to keep supply coming of the thing that I like. But even as specialty has grown, I think it's struggled to reconcile the story it has told with the outcomes that have happened. With the impacts to producers' lives. Like we're 20, 25, 30 years, whatever you want to say, into quote unquote the third wave. And we're not really wrestling with some of the more challenging outcomes, which is, by and large, from the data I've seen, we will spend more money with producers who can speak English. That doesn't feel very good. That doesn't feel like, but that's, do you know what I mean? There was I struggle to find it now. I remember reading a paper from some Dutch researchers in Guatemala who were like, the ability to speak English dramatically impacted the prices you can earn as a producer. And you're like, okay, that's an interesting data point we should consider. If you look at right now, I'm not going to speak to whether I think they're good or not or any of that kind of stuff. But if you look at the most fashionable coffees right now, which would be experimental fermentations or those kind of things, right? Those require the producer to have access to capital and appetite for risk. And those two things are kind of linked. You know what I mean? You need money to invest in the equipment to do the stuff, and you need to be okay if the stuff doesn't taste good, financially speaking. And again, that means the producers that tend to be earning the highest prices for coffee tend to be the ones with more capital to start with. Oh, it's capitalism. Hooray. But that's kind of, a piece of this. People have to be careful here. I'll try not to be controversial.
Please be controversial.
There was a recent auction lot that sold for incredibly high money. It sold to a Dubai roastery. was Hacienda La Esmeralda. It was a small lot. It was something like, I don't remember the money, but
$30,000
sorry?
a kilo.
But it was a 20 kilo lot, right? Was it something like that? Like it was $30,000 per kilo and a 20 kilo lot, right? And so I'm totally okay with someone spending that much money on raw coffee. The idea that a producer has a great windfall. I really like Rachel Peterson. I don't know her particularly well. We've interacted a handful of times, and I've enjoyed her company. I think they grow incredible coffee. But I sort of felt like, probably the last farm in the world, if you ranked them by order of need for $600,000, is Hacienda La Esmeralda. I don't think that's a wildly controversial thing to say. They have built a great business. They changed the game. Like they've earned all the accolades. They've earned all the success. I'm not arguing that. But it sort of made me feel a bit sad that much money went into a system to a player with enough money to start with. You know what I mean? Like they've had year after year after year of incredible success. And it just sort of exemplified what we get wrong, I think, to some extent in this, because that much money is life-changing for a bunch of people. But it probably isn't actually life-changing in Hacienda La Esmeralda, which is, what do you make of that? That's a great question. Again, I'm not criticizing them. Like, if you want to spend the money, that's a marketing decision, ultimately. For the roastery that bought it, that is a marketing decision. That's a marketing budget. I don't want to get into that. The thing that I want to see more of is thought about, like, well, hang on, who's earning the best money in specialty and who's not? Like, how's that working out? That's a more complex thing for us to get into. And so how do we overcome that? Let's just start with having a look at that piece of it first. And then you have something like the price, the C market price right now. And I remember in 2010, there was a C market price spike. It went to $3.10 a pound. And I was speaking to a gentleman called Casey O'Keefe. And at that time, he worked, I think, for Intelligentsia. I can't remember. He was a buyer, worked a lot in Peru. And he's like, this momentary price spike has had a greater impact on more farmers than anything specialty coffee has done in the last decade. That, you know what I mean? Like that, this had way more impact on way more people at a way deeper level. And you're like, oh, does that feel good? I don't know if it feels good. That doesn't mean, throw the model out, never stop paying good money for good coffee. Let's not do those things. But I think I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like we probably need a bit more conversation about it to start with, about like, okay, hang on a second. How are we thinking about this? What do we value? And if we only value someone able to risk and invest, does that skew the way that we buy? If we reserve our deepest pockets for those kind of things, what does that mean? And how much risk are we taking? And where is the more valuable risk for us to take long term? Those questions, I think, are very interesting and probably worth a bit more discussion.
Do you think that some of this is? I mean, I think I wrestle with this as well. I do think there's a lot of greenwashing of this in the industry, and I think that we kind of have convinced ourselves, like it's such a complex problem, right? I'm not saying there's an easy solution by any means, and it kind of goes back to your comment about you push it too hard or too fast or too far, and the proposition and the model kind of breaks, right? Like the consumer won't keep up with it, the business fails, and then all any good intentions you have kind of become pointless because you have no entity to actually enact any change. But I think that because it's difficult and hard, we kind of coast. A lot of the specialty industry just coasts and goes, everyone's doing it like this, and I'm paying above the C market. What do you want? That's specialty, right? Without really asking this question of like, well, is that doing what you're saying it's doing in terms of sustainable livelihoods, or are you're just at like minimum wage, like barely scraping above kind of poverty levels in a lot of cases? Like what are you part of that's kind of continuing the process. And I think the biggest thing is, are we just kind of lying to ourselves, or like allowing ourselves to do that? And are we setting false expectations with the consumer? Like,
I think
they
people don't
trust
know
us,
who should
right?
take the responsibility on. I think people sit there like, I don't know, I'm kind of doing it. Is it my job to do this? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to sell some coffee.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I mean, it's a one where I sort of feel like either you've got genuine ethics or just ethics for show. If you've got genuine ethical aspirations, I suppose is the best we can do these days, then do you need to even talk about it? Just do it. Just shut up and do it. Like, just make a choice that's uncomfortable, but probably better by your ethical standards, whatever those are. But we struggle a lot with it, like, but how do we tell that story? You know what I mean? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just do it. Maybe that would be okay, you know?
That's the new James Hoffman quote t-shirt. Just shut up and do it.
Shut up and do it.
Just shut up and do
The new Nike of coffee.
I don't disagree that there are bad actors and there are people that will abuse this and abuse any opportunity. They're going to be there, but we just can't. I don't know. If we just try and say, oh, but if we tell people we're doing a good job, you're like, well, they'll just tell them too. Like, it's not a defensible position.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you were saying about, that people are sophisticated. They want the experience. The pricing will go up. So the truly specialty offerings, there'll be less and less actual specialty in terms of higher cup quality. So people who want that will have to pay more. It'll come up. The price in the cup will go up. The people who want to keep growing it are the ones who are actually making money and doing well by it. And everyone else will either, step into other crops or whatever else. And, what it just probably ends up meaning is that coffee or good quality coffee isn't actually as accessible to the consumer as much anymore, because it will not be this everyday multiple cup commodity. And I'm not necessarily sure that less coffee available, if it means more sustainable, isn't a good thing. Putting out the hot spicy takes right now.
Well, so I'll throw in a hot spicy take for you. It's and I won't regionalize it too much, though I see it more in certain markets. These are really, like, I would argue, in the face of rising coffee prices, the most advantaged players in the whole market are cafes. And you're like, hang on, I don't like that as a thought, but just hang on. Cafes have the strongest advantage because in the liquid, in the cup, serving that, the cost of that thing, actually the coffee itself is a relatively small piece of that puzzle. It's tiny, actually, as an amount, right? So let's say coffee prices to a cafe go up 15%, which, don't like that. But your per cup cost is a few, it's not a lot of cents. That goes up, 3, 5, 7 cents. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could maintain a cash margin and put 10 cents on your price and be paying more for your coffee, and your cash margins improve. Yeah, you could argue as a percentage of your GP is slightly dinged, but whatever. You were happy to make $3 gross before, you make $3 gross now, whatever. The point is, it's actually not that difficult to absorb the costs going in. Cafe owners tend to look at how much coffee they spent in a year, how much they spent on coffee in a year, and dislike it when that number goes up. Even if that number goes up because they sold more coffee. Anyway, that's a separate piece. You kind of want the number to go up. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you spend $20,000 a year on coffee, what if you spent 50? Wouldn't that make a better business? Anyway, coffee shop owners, and I see this in particular in certain markets that you may be more familiar with.
I think he's talking about something here, Rowan.
Weirdly fearful of the customer and of price rises, right? Now, I'm not going to argue for exploitative pricing. I'm not saying put your prices up and necessarily squeeze your customer, but we don't have much data that shows a drop in consumption due to price increase yet. And we've seen price increases pretty consistently now in most markets for decades, right? Price increases happen, consumption is still rising. Prices going up, consumption is rising. We do 100% have historical data that shows if you drop quality, consumption goes down, right? If you look at the US in the 1950s and 60s, Roasters got into a price war, began to sub in more Robusta, and per capita consumption began to drop for the first time ever. If you sell people less delicious coffee, they do buy less. That's actually the line in the sand for people of like, it's quality. It's not the price per cup. And so it kind of drives me crazy that business owners will endlessly lament, the customer won't pay more. You've got no data for that. And then they'll be like, oh, prices are going up. Oh, maybe I'll just buy something a bit cheaper from another roastery. Or maybe I'll go to like just like a milk blend where you can't taste that it isn't that good in there. I'll just drop the quality a little bit because I need to stay competitive in pricing. And like, no. All of the data says if you do that, they'll notice and drink less. But if you hold your quality and charge more, we don't yet have the data of this is the maximum people will pay before you see a decrease in consumption. I'm not saying exploit people. I'm not saying put your prices up unnecessarily. But I am saying it seems a really bad time to compromise on quality to earn a few more pennies in a highly competitive market with a evolved, smart, educated consumer who is able to brew good coffee at home. Like that's just not the time to knock a few bucks off the price you pay and whack it all a dark roasted milk blend thing. And that's going to be the answer to your problems because it's not. It's just not.
Well, I don't know what market he's talking to, but if you're friends with us here and you're having a listen, take those words on board. And the media in certain countries should stop pushing out propaganda about $12 coffees and just chill out a little bit. And
looking at you, North America.
Yeah.
But look, it is universal. I find it slightly more intense in certain geographies, but it's a thing. But we're not really making evidence-based decisions here yet.
Sure.
We haven't found that point. And again, it's not like you have to add $1 to the price because that's not what your costs have gone up by.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's not necessary to do that. Yeah, you need to understand your underlying financials and probably have a good set of accounts going on and probably know what your wastage is and your various costs and be on top of labor and all of the boring stuff that is operating a business. But it's just not necessary, I say, at this point, to compromise. And I think it's a bad choice. And yeah, I have a vested interest in people not doing that. But in markets I have no opinion on or interest in, financially, I suppose, I still would argue the same thing.
Now, my final thought, we've talked about greenwashing, and now it's time to talk about brownwashing.
No.
Because we talked about having fun in coffee, and just recently, first off, congratulations, you launched an amazing video that asked the question, why does coffee make you poop?
He never said that word.
He didn't say the word. I'm saying the word. And also embarrassing, I've now said brownwashing. But that was an amazing feat. The animation was fantastic. For those that haven't seen it, it's like a magic school bus style adventure where James and an animated bean go on a journey of the human body to discuss why coffee makes you, how did you put it in your video? Defecate? There was some...
give you the compelling urge to defecate.
There you go. So A, go and watch that video if you haven't. But B, James, is it possible in just 30 seconds to explain to our audience, why does coffee make you poop?
Yeah, the best we understand of it is that the minute you take a sip of coffee, coffee could be triggering a part of your nervous system called your muscarinic nervous system. So basically nerves in your mouth immediately begin to send a signal to your gut to begin peristalsis, which is another lovely term that I didn't need to animate with my hands. Do you know what I mean? And so, those receptors are throughout the sort of digestive tract. But yeah, it's not hormonal. It's not a digestive issue. It's actually a nervous response to drinking coffee. And the same, the muscarinic system is also triggered by nicotine. So there are people who need to have a little cigarette in the morning, historically, to begin the day. And combining coffee and a cigarette for many people is considered a double whammy of like intensity in that regard. And they work on the same pathway. So nicotine triggers the same receptors that coffee is triggering. So that's why there's a synergy in those things.
Observationally, I've seen that happen to many people. So yes, confirmed. True.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Glad we managed to cover that off.
We had to. What a great video. It had to be brought up.
It was very good. James, we're kind of nearing the end of this amazing episode. Did you have anyone that you wanted to do a bit of a shout out to, or shine a bit of a light on that you think deserves a bit more celebration?
Yeah, I feel like what I do involves a great big mistake, which is I put my name on the front of a YouTube channel. And as a result, people presume it's to some extent a singular experience, but it's not. There's a team of 6 of us here. And they're not in front of the camera, and it's not their name on the channel, but I'm aware I stand up and represent our collective work. And so I just want to shout out my team here, who are happy not to be on camera, but do deserve a lot of credit for a lot of what happens and how it happens and the fact that we're able to do what we do. So yeah, shout out to them.
Thank you so much for your time. We very much appreciate it. It's been super insightful.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. Obviously, this is normally the part in the episode where we kind of go like, where can everyone find you? I'm sure everyone knows where to find you. You probably already follow him on all of the channels. It's James Hoffman. He's amazing. Thank you again for your time. And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to send it to a friend. We're getting the best and greatest minds in coffee on this show to have conversations about it. So, thank you for listening. We'd love it if you could subscribe. Mm-hmm. Just throw in one of those, James, at the end. Like and subscribe. Can you please honk it? But, we're just kicking it off. We're just trying,
I've never said those words and I never will.
Say it right now. Wait, could you say it for hours? Could you tell people to like and subscribe?
No. Just if this is on YouTube, this is on YouTube. It's too late now, but you've done the right thing. The only thing YouTube cares about, it doesn't care about comments, likes, or subscribes anymore. It just cares about watch time. So if you've watched this much of the video, you are a great person. Well done. Congratulations. You are doing, important work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, James. Have a good morning.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye.